Hi, I'm Green Pangolin. I'm starting a new series today. If you already know what this game is, you have probably seen every video out there on YouTube and you're looking for more, like I do every month or so. In which case, welcome. I hope to be somewhat entertaining to you. And if you just got here because of the algorithm, welcome. And I hope you're going to learn to like this game. Because I do like this game. A lot. It has been one of my hyperfixations for a while, actually. So, what is this? This is Erannorth Chronicles, a sandbox RPG with strong deck building aspect. It is made by a single developer, and it is super hardcore, super information dense. So it does take a lot of time to get used to. So it is a very niche game, I think. So if it doesn't look appealing to you, then it's not going to be appealing to you. But if you do click with this game, then I welcome you to try it. How big is this game, you might ask? Let me show you something. I'm gonna click the handbook. There are 6,413 cards in this game. That's like 10 other deck builders combined. So it is massive. It also has an active modding community. And the dev is still active, looking back and patching stuff every once in a while he's working on his next game. So, what I'm aiming for with this new series is that this game has a lot of difficulty options, and inside the game you have 4 different endgame quests, and you can do any of them to win. What I want to do is do all of those quests with each of the difficulties. So hopefully you're going to find something you like here. Going to start a new character now. And this here is the character creation place. You're going to see a lot of it for one reason or another. If you click at the click start over here, there are actually some pre-generated characters you can try out, and they are quite balanced, in my opinion. So you can try any of these just to get the hang of the game itself before you start crafting your own character. But I'm going to walk you through this as best as I can. So, we're starting here with organization. These are the factions in this game. You can pick any one of them. They're going to provide you with bonus skills and perks and cards that you're not going to get otherwise. It's entirely optional, so you can just go unaligned, which is the default. I sometimes pick an organization, sometimes I don't. Mainly, it complicates things by giving you extra stuff. to work with, but it also has some really good, unique stuff. So for demonstrative purposes, I think I'm going to go with Via Aurum, which is the Merchants Guild. It's going to give us diplomacy and trade skills. Next, I'm going to pick species. See, there are 15 species, and each of them has their own subspecies. So already there's a bunch of choices. Either of these works fine. For most of them you can also choose not to pick any of the sub races. Okay, so you can see right here, this is the amount of health you're going to get each level. This is the amount of action points you're getting each level. This number right here is your minimum deck size. So you can see as we look lower, we're going to go 24, 30, 36. So this bottom row could be considered the advanced races. Because bigger deck size isn't always better. So these will take some time getting used to. So I think I'm going to go with Fae for this. They are kind of fragile but have lots of AP. And up here you can see something called the mastery bonus. So because this game has kind of a roguelike aspect to it, in a way that the other sandbox RPGs do, like Ancient Domains of Mystery or Tales of Mageia. In that, as you play the game, you will inevitably die. You're going to gain mastery points depending on how far you got with that character. And here, the mastery bonus, you see, you gain +1 LP, that is level up points, for every 150 points of combined mastery, up to 17. And these level up points are going to be used to increase skills and stats in the game. So you have mastery for species and class separately, and they add up to get the bonus LP. I'm gonna show you real quick. If I pick Dwarf, that I have played quite some time, I already have 229 mastery points. So that is worth 1 extra LP. Okay. So I pick Fae. Here you can read about the lore of each species. Not going to do that, or this would last forever. Of course, you see other attributes. Every species has their own innate skills, their affinities and resistances, and you start with a number of specific cards. Going to look at that later. Now with the Fae, you can choose between Unseelie or Unseelie. These will give you different bonuses and effects See, some of these change where you start the game. So the Unseelie is more geared for marksmanship and conjuration, and the Unseelie is more for the dark affinity with illusions. So I think I'm going to go with Unseelie. Next, here we have classes. Same as with the species, we have 15, but there's a whole lot more specializations to choose from. Again, like with the species, you don't always have to pick a specialization, but with some classes it's mandatory. Like for example, if I pick Knight, the description recommends that you pick a specialization because you get most of your base cards from there. But if you go with, let's say, Mercenary, it's pretty basic, so you can just go with it as it is. So you can go with species class combinations that enhance what you have already, or try to branch out a little bit. Like, because the Fae have high marksmanship, I could just go with Hunter, which already goes with high marksmanship, or I could branch into Mage or Philosopher or Psychic. I think, for now, I'm going to show you some Druid. See, the Druid outright says that picking a specialization isn't optional. So there are these classes too. And with the class, you see here the attributes. These are the modifiers on the attributes on your species screen, so these ones. And the class gives you additional skills, affinities, and resistances, plus your starting pack of cards. Now, one thing here is that each species, has the minimum deck size, but classes have their minimum deck sizes too, and it's always in order. So you can't just, for example, pick an avian, which has a 36 deck size, and go with Monk. It doesn't go down to 20. So you have to always keep the higher of these two. Yeah, now we can pick between all these different kinds of druids. We can be a druid of the oak. They basically command ants. Or be a druid of the lark, who have perform, which is basically a bard skill, songs and stuff. Or druid of the stone, which is kind of like an earthbender kind of deal, or druid of the viper, which is very poison heavy. Shamans have spirits. Hermit has survival and hunting. Claw shifters are kind of like werewolves. They have a bunch of natural weapons, claw attacks. Rune masters have rune casting. Runes are special kind of cards that have a lot of different effects, or we can be Grove Warden, which are very heavily reliant on summoning animals to help us. I think I'm going with Druid of the Stone. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Okay. Next we're going for background. You see there's a bunch of these as well. These two with a star are recommended for new players. They just give you a little boost, so you have an easier start. And these ones with the exclamation mark are only here because of the species or class that you chose. Like you can see, Silver Serpent is here because I chose the Via Aurum for organization. So this would unlock a whole bunch of different skills for us. These kinds of backgrounds are actually quite good in my opinion, because they give a kind of a thematic package, if you will, that would make it easier. This is the same for Via Aurum. This is more heavy on diplomacy. You can go through each of these. They all have their little extras that give you. Sometimes you find some weird synergies with other stuff. This is very much a matter of exploration. Again, I could be here for another hour trying to pick something out, but to ease this start a little bit, let's see, what should I go with? Let's go with Physician. We're going to be an earthbending druid who can also heal. That sounds good enough. I'm going to explain the ripple effects in a bit. Okay, now here, this is the character screen. Here's our attributes. These are all the skills we have that are granted by all of these choices that we made. And from here, we can just put 1 point into whatever we like. Your skills can only be as high as your level, unless you get some bonuses from perks or character creation. Otherwise it stays like this. Now this is 9. different skills. And because of how many cards there are in this game, that might give you an amount of options that is too overwhelming for you, in which case you could just go to this skill and press down, and it would make the skill Forsaken. What Forsaken means is that when you start the character, you're not going to have this skill anymore. So it's not going to be at 0. If I don't forsake Alchemy, for example, then I'm going to start the game with a 0 in Alchemy, but I will have Alchemy. But if you forsake something, you're going to give up that skill. You're not going to find any cards of this skill. But in the game there are ways to learn new skills. So it's not a forever choice. And because of that, I'm going to forsake illusions as well. There's just a lot of magic things going on. Having too much is sometimes conflicting. Or there's an overlap that you don't really need. I'm going to put 1 point in diplomacy and trade, since I already have these from the faction that I chose. If I were to delete the faction, then I would just lose these skills. I would just have these. Okay, have 4 level up points. I usually like spending half of my initial level up points on skills and the other half on attributes, since it's a bit harder to increase attributes in this game. Okay, resilience is like constitution. I'm going to need some to have more health. And you see, each of these stats cover one or more affinities with either major or minor impact. Other things. You see, willpower here says it's responsible for how much AP you have at the start. And with intellect it is for hand size. Like you see, you have an initial hand size of 4. And it sounds like very little, but there are ways that this doesn't actually hurt us in the game. But what's interesting about intellect is that it affects hand size at very specific points. So I put 1 point into intellect here. You see, exactly at 14 intellect, your hand size jumps up to 5. And I usually like keeping even my more martially inclined characters at 14 intellect, just for the extra hand size. Final point, I think I'm going to put it into resilience. So, looking like this, very low on strength, but it only affects physical damage. So we're not going to deal physical damage. Okay, now that that's done, I'm going to go with starting kit. The starting kit depends on the class that you chose. You can go with a staff, talisman, bandage, chicken leg, or sunstone token, wolf talisman, some milk, bandage, or talisman, cloak, wand, a bandage. Or if you don't like any of these, you can just grab extra 2 LPs, or this Memoir of Hero, which is a card, single-use card, that gives you 6 random cards and you can choose 4. So if you really can't decide what you want to start with, you can just pick this and the game gives you a random selection. Now, I'm not going to take the stuff because that is a physical weapon. And my strength right now is so atrocious that I'm not going to deal any damage with that. Instead, I'm going to pick the Druid's Gear 3. Okay, now that that's done, I can just choose an avatar. Let's go with you. Give our character a name. I usually just click the randomize button. Till I find something that looks almost good. Yeah, feels is good. Okay. The game reminds you about the skills you Forsaken, just in case you change your mind. And then finally you can change the difficulty. As you can see, there's a whole lot of difficulties. And they have their own sets of rules. Now, I'm going to uncheck beginner because I have already finished exploration and conquest. Took me about 300 hours, but I did it. So I'm going to do this series with vanilla and all beyond. Now I'm going to read you the rules of vanilla, because maybe I'm just blind, but I don't think I can find these rules specifically while I'm in the game, only at the start screen. So, see, dynamic world, area rewards and enemy levels change every time you start or resume your game in this mode. So what this means is, let's say you stop at a place that has a level 10 quest and you quit the game, and when you restart it, that quest might not be level 10 anymore. The levels sort of shuffle around every time. The rewards as well, so if you don't like anything that's offered, you can just sort of save scum your way until you see something that's actually worth doing the quest for. Okay, and every 2 of your levels, repeatable area levels increase by 1. So this rule means that you can't just stay in one low-level place and grind it forever for easy levels, because everything in the entire map is going to increase in levels. Okay. Merchandise quality in towns is affected by your influence. Some settlements will deny you entry till your influence in that area improves. Every quest you do in a certain location gives you a certain amount of influence. So if you can't get into the town, or you want to buy better stuff, all you have to do is stay in that place and do some of the repeated quests for a while. In the discard phase you keep only your first 7 cards. Okay, so you know how our hand size is 5. That means if you have less than 5 cards in your hand at the end of your turn, then you're going to draw up to 5. But if you already have 5, then the next turn you're going to draw again. And the game doesn't let you draw cards if you have 10 or more in your hand already. So you will never start your turn with more than 7 cards. Damage over time effects like bleed, venom, etc. persist till they expire or are cured. So if you're doing a quest and your very last enemy hits you with a bleed, and then you win, then whatever bleed you have left is going to stay on your character until you start the next quest. And then you can either let it time out, out heal it, or just remove it. Okay. Temporary ally limits. There are cards in this game called allies, and you put them out on a field for a limited time. And you can use them to attack, or some of them have special skills. So they're not going to do more than 80 damage, have more than 100 health, and you can't buff them to last longer than 12 turns. Unique allies are single-use cards that you can get as quest rewards. So you use them once and they get put out to the field forever, but they have higher maximum stats to compensate. Okay, here are some more detailed rules. You see, for a normal encounter, we're going to get 3 or 4 enemies. For elite encounters, that's 4 to 6. The difficulty rating of 4. Enemies with resistances is vanilla. So whatever was intended. Modify positive resistances, 150%. This means that whatever damage resistance it usually has, it now has 50% more. Modified negative resistance, 80%, means that whatever negative resistance they have, which would make them take more damage, they only have 80% of that. So if an enemy normally has -5 resist, in vanilla it only has -4. Elite level adjustment +1. This means that when you fight elites, they're going to be a higher level than the normal mobs. Okay, we're going to need 50 XP times our level to level up. Level adjustment 0. This just means that we're going to start at level 1. Wealth, we start at 200 money. We're going to get plus 35 extra hit points at the start. And for every 4 levels, our AP regeneration is going to increase by 1. We're getting 2 level up points per level, 15 PP, that is perk points per level. These are the sandbox rules. You can see the difficulty itself has some modifiers. So sandbox means you can travel freely, explore any location. The areas are dynamic. Potential, these were already covered. Unique allies are single use. They have an upkeep of 1 concentration per turn. Going to show you what concentration means. And we have some special rules. There's no permadeath. You could use tokens to retain progress. Tokens are like the meta currency you're going to gain every time you win a game. You can use it to, when you die with a character, you can just pay the tokens and say this didn't happen, and you just keep going on. Or you can revive dead characters if you don't want to go through the trouble of making the build again. Or if you win with a character on one of the difficulties, you can use tokens to basically do a new game plus with that character in another difficulty. Fatigue after 8 actions. So unlike the roguelike deck builders, where you have a limited amount of energy to use your cards with, but then you could theoretically get 0 cost cards and draws and just keep playing on your turn forever. In Erannorth, you have concentration. So you start with 8 concentration. That is the amount of cards you're allowed to play. And after you hit the 8 actions, you're going to start getting fatigue. And fatigue is a stacking debuff that's going to make all of your cards cost more. So you could just keep playing even after you're fatigued, but then you're going to use up all your AP. If you don't win on that turn, then next turn you're going to be in trouble. Okay, draw step vanilla, so there's no changes. The discard phase, you keep only the first 7 cards. Core node base rules active. Some places have their own rules. Ley lines active. Ley lines are special modifiers on certain nodes. Going to show you. Enemy ambushes. As you travel on the map, you have a chance, 10% by day, 30 by night, that you're going to trigger a random encounter that you have to win to continue. Okay, shopping advances time disabled. Normally this is disabled, but there are some scenarios, like the campaign, which you can see it has something called the Doomsday Clock. So basically in campaign the entire game is on a timer and you have to win before it runs out. And under those rules, shopping is much more important. Okay, reinforcements, +2 enemies per 6 turns. So if you don't kill the original enemies that you had in 6 turns, then they're going to spawn 2 more. Punishing reinforcements enabled. This means that the reinforcements that are going to be summoned, if you take too much time, those enemies are not going to scale to the quest's level, they're going to scale to your level. So you might be in more trouble than when you started. And you get a total of 4 of these waves. Resisted debuffs apply 0% fracture. Now, this is one of the reasons I wanted to start this whole series on vanilla, because if I go here to exploration, see, on the easy mode, resisted debuffs apply 5% fracture. The fracture is a special kind of debuff that you can put on enemies that directly subtracts from their existing debuff resistance. So let's say that you have an enemy that you want to stun, but that enemy is resistant to stun. It has an 85% resistance. So if you could manage to put 85 fracture on that enemy, then it's not going to have a chance to resist the stun. And on the easy modes, because resisted debuffs apply this fracture, you could just keep spamming cheap and weak debuffs, and just stack up these fractures so you can hit them with the really big debuffs. It's a good crutch, I think, if you're just learning the game. But eventually you need to learn how to play without it. That's why I want to go with vanilla. So, I hope I was understandable so far. So, I'm going to start playing. Okay, it's going to take it a little bit to generate the whole world. Okay, so here we are. This is the game. As you can see, it's pretty honking big. It's going to take a lot of time to go through this. There are some bigger settlements that have caravans or some other form of fast travel, but those go to fixed points and they cost money. Now here we are at Grisbog. You see all of these named locations that you can explore. However, if you just scan with your mouse, you can find, see, these ruins, gateways, mines. There are a bunch of unlisted locations. And you can also go there and explore. Okay, let's go through this stuff at the bottom. Here, this is the exploration window. This is where you can go to the settlement or do any of the quests that are at the location you're in. See, this map parchment icon means that these are all repeatable quests. You can just keep going. Sort of farm the rewards. It is very important. Here we have this Gardorak War Party. This cowl icon is also called a challenge. It means that this is not repeatable. And here this treasure chest icon, appropriately named treasure. This is also a one-time only quest, but it has slightly better rewards than usual. Okay, if you don't want to go to this screen all the time, you can also just press this or press the key T to immediately go to the town. And in the town, you can buy and sell a bunch of stuff. can also skip time. It costs you a little money, but you can tell how much you want to adjust the clock. This is important if you want to not do a quest during the night, because there are certain benefits and drawbacks to the night. Okay, here the inn. This is fixed resting. You pay 45 money, and no matter what the time is, you will always get jumped to the morning of the next day. So even if it's 2 AM, you're going to get jumped to the next day of morning. Again, this is much more important when you are on a doomsday clock scenario. You can also pay to heal, and it advances the world clock by 2 hours. You can buy rations here. Your rations are right here. You see, I can carry 4, start with 2. I usually buy 1. Don't really need to go with full rations all the time. Or you can buy essence here. Essence is something that's used for a very specific kind of cards. Don't have those yet, and I'm going to show you. So here on the left side, there's a bunch of stuff we can buy. Commodities are mostly things that have very little consequence in the game. So like bones or gems, or anything with this goblet icon, which means it's valuable. Usually commodities are safe to sell. We also have weapons and shields. So you can see each card has a skill associated with it. It has an AP cost, and it has an element, which is the kind of damage that it does. So this green below the skill icon is the requirement. If there's anything with an asterisk, that means you can use it even if you don't have that skill. As opposed to, say, a longbow, you need 1 marksmanship to be able to equip it. So you see, because this is a basic town, it only sells basic stuff. Okay, let's go to armors and accessories. See here, all sorts of rings and necklaces, and capes and armors. And the stuff you can buy here are all dependent on the skills you have. See, because I have nature magic, I can buy this ceremonial mask. If I didn't have it, then something else would be in this place. Right, here we go. So this fossil talisman is a necklace. It has 6 charges. It does a stun, and it's infused. Infused cards are special in that they have limited amount of charges, but once you use those charges up, you're not going to lose the item. Think of them like the enchanted items in an Elder Scrolls game. You deplete the charge and then you can pay to recharge it. And that is what essence is for. You're going to need to buy a certain amount of essence, then you can recharge any infused item that you have. There are certain classes like inventors that can recharge items on their own, but for everyone else you need to do this manually by buying essence. Okay. Here we have actions. You can see there's an extreme variation of cards and effects. It's really mind-boggling. I tend to not buy anything and just attempt to get by on what I get from quests, unless there's something I really want. And all of these shop windows get reset every day. Okay, here we have consumables. Again, there are normal consumables that simply have limited uses and then you lose the item. And there are infused consumables. This little star icon means that you can only have one of this particular card in your collection. Okay. And here's the ally screen. Allies are special cards that you can play. One thing to note about allies is that these are the only type of cards that you cannot sell. So if you're going to just pick up all the allies, your collection is going to be bloated with these. I don't recommend it generally. Plus, these are pretty expensive from the store. Now, if I had any items, like these ones that I started with, I could sell them. Here are the consumables. I want to hold on to those. Let's go to the character sheet. So, this is the second screen that you're going to be very familiar with. So here are all our attributes. We're doing pretty okay. One thing to note about attributes is that you can use level up points to increase them. However, they cost 1 LP up to raise up to 16. So from 16 to 17 and upwards, increasing your stats will cost 2 LP. So if you want to get the most of whichever ability you want to have as your main, I recommend increasing it manually up to 16, because perks are going to get you attribute points as well. That's just my recommendation anyway. So here we have resistances. These are directly subtracted or added to any kind of incoming damage. See, I have some air resist and some earth resist, but -1 fire resist. So any kind of fire damage I take will be increased by 1. Here I have affinities. These are what get added to the damage of your cards. You don't have to keep track of this, because the cards themselves are going to reflect these. This is just for you to see how you're doing. So you can see, because I have 6 strength, any kind of slashing damage I do would take a -2. -1 on bludgeoning. I am somewhat better with elemental and magical stuff. See, here are our choices: faction, species, and class. And it keeps track of the mastery we have. This is our HP, our AP. This is how much AP we get back per turn. This is how many allies we can have out at any given time. Some classes, like necromancers, can have this up to 10 or 12, so it's really bonkers what you can do with certain builds. This is how many cards we have in our deck. See, currently I have 36 cards. The game automatically slots them in for you, but 24 is the minimum. So I could take some cards out to keep closer to the minimum, and that would help in some cases when you rely on only a few bigger cards and you want to get them consistently. And we have a hand size of 5. So this book, modifiers, if I hover over, it's going to show every ongoing passive effect that I gain. So ripple effects are special passive effects that only happen when you do a certain thing. So this says -1 strain every time I get supplies. Supplies is a card mechanic that takes one consumable item from your draw pile and puts it in your hand. I think I'm going to show you when I do one quest, so you see how it works. And then there are action effect modifiers. So you see, the skill in the brackets mean that the effect only applies to cards of that type. So +1 vulnerable for all illusion cards. So if I had an illusion card that inflicts 1 vulnerable, because of this modifier, that would change to 2. And see, marksmanship, bleed 1. So every kind of bleeding marksmanship skill would add 1 more bleed. So on the right side here, it's going from this way. We have the perks. As you gain perk points, you can unlock a bunch of these. They all have level requirements, and they work in a perk tree kind of fashion. So you need to get the first, then that unlocks the second, and so on, so forth. There are a lot of perks here, as you can see. So you can look at the bottom ones and see what you need to work towards that, or you can just always grab whatever is available. That's a way to play it as well. Okay, next there's progression. These are like little in-game achievements that we're going to check back every once in a while and claim them as we complete them. Now, here's the equipment. We got these two from creation. Here's a feather talisman and the cloak of the woods. I'm going to equip both of these. You have various slots on you, and you can only have one item in each slot. And the way items work in this game is that you can only carry one of each. So because I have a feather talisman here, if one of the quests or chests or whatever would offer me feather talisman, I wouldn't be able to take it because I already have it. Now, the reason this handsaddle of 5 is not that much of a problem is that every item that you equip in this game, you're going to get in your hand every single turn, if it's activatable. So you're not going to feel that drawing 5 cards every turn is too little. I'm gonna show you something. Click on this and it brings up the codex entry of the item. So here you can see if the card is from an expansion, what kind it is, its cost, and its tier. Every card has a tier. This is -1 because it's basic, but later cards can have many tiers. And as you play cards in this game, they're going to get experience. And as they get experience, they're going to level up. And every card can have a maximum level of its tier +1. So you can see this feather talisman has a max level of 0. So this never improves. And what tier does is that every effect that's on the card is going to get improved by the level of the card. So let's say there's a tier 2 card that does 10 damage. So when you first get the card, it has no levels, so it does 10 damage. Because it's tier 2, it can go up to level 3, and when you have it at level 3, it's going to do 13 damage instead of 10. Okay? Card levels are also important for another thing. I'm going to show you that later. Okay, you see, this is a nature magic card, and it has an earth element, and it's free to use. Counts as nature magic, and it gives range. Now this little icon here, this arrow, this is one of the most important parts of this game. This is a synergy. And what this does is whatever effect there is on the synergy, it's going to give to the next card that you play after this one. And it also draws one. The color coding of the card is not a coincidence. This blue text means that it always targets you. So even if you try to use this card on an enemy, this draw will only affect you. Again, that's important for other cards. Okay, next here's the Cloak of the Woods. This is a tier 1 item. As you can see, needs 10 XP to get to level 1. And it goes up linearly. So the second level needs 20, then 30, and so on. So this Cloak of the Woods is an automatic equipment item, which means you don't get the card, it just gets used at the beginning of the turn. So you still have it, but it just gets used by itself. So this gives you +1 earth resist, and it says 0% concealment. Now you might ask, what's the point of something giving 0 of anything? Now this only says 0 because currently in the game it's day. And the special rule of daytime is that everything that concealment is debuffed. So if I were going in the night, then this would not be 0. Concealment is a buff you give to yourself that gives a % chance to avoid any damage in the turn, and it stacks up to 65. Now you see this little diamond up in the top of the card. If I click here on the element, it's going to show the card at max level. So you see it's tier 1 card, so it can go up to level 2. And these 2 levels are going to get added to the effects of the card. See, it will go from resist 1 to resist 3. And the concealment goes up considerably too. This is how card levels affect everything. Alright, one more thing about equipment. You can press W anytime and it brings you up the deck switching screen. So while there is deck building in this game, you don't just build a deck like in Slay the Spire, where the deck is what you have. You're building a collection of cards, and you can craft a deck from that collection. And you can craft multiple decks actually. You can save them, and at any point, even in combat, you can just switch between decks. So you're going to want to have a lot of cards. And the way I play it, usually you make decks with very specific effects or damage types. Because let's say I'm an Earth Druid, so I do a lot of Earth damage. So if I get into a fight where everything resists Earth damage, I would need something else. Like I'm going to be on the lookout for some other form of damage, and then build a deck around that, and that would be the backup. So anytime I could just switch between the two. And right here on the right side is the same as the deck switching, but with equipment. So if I were to click here, this would save whatever equipment I have currently. So if I just unequip it, then press W again, and then press this one, boom, I have them equipped again. Just like with the decks, you can change between equipment loadouts at any time in the game. here is our deck. But I'm going to go into the deck builder. The game calls it a deck builder, but this is just your collection. I can click on this for split view. So this is all the cards I currently have in my deck. This is how many of the cards I have, and this is the cost. And for every card that isn't a unique, you can have 3 copies of it in your collection. And you decide what you want, how many of those you want. Okay, so first thing first, this hardened stuff amplifies bludgeoning damage, but I deal basically no bludgeoning damage, so I'm going to remove these from my deck. Okay, I think I want to go through these cards, because even with the starting deck there are a lot of things to learn. Okay, let's see. Ascetic Life. This lightning icon means that it's a reaction. So after you play any card, you discard all reaction cards still in your hand. So if you draw this at the start of your turn, and you want to use it, then this has to be the first one you use. Otherwise it just gets discarded. Okay, now this scroll icon is the second most important part of this game. The first one is here, the synergy, which gives whatever effect it does to the next card you play. However, everything marked with this scroll is an exception. So if I play hardened stuff, I get a +2 damage synergy. This is a bad example, since it's a reaction. Actually, let's go with Phelak for this. So if I use hardened stuff, I get a +2 damage synergy. And then I use Phelak. Phelak doesn't get the synergy, because this scroll means it's blocking the synergy. And then Phelak can add its own synergy. And the synergies you can get this way actually stack. So hardened stuff and Phelak double critical would mean that the next card I play would have extra damage and a 50% chance of dealing double damage. And that is why I love this game so much. Because of these simple interactions, you can just take these small numbers and stack them up to something really big. Okay, back to Ascetic Life. This one is effortless. Effortless means as long as it doesn't get Fury or Multicast, it won't consume any concentration. Remember, concentration is the amount of cards you can play in one turn before everything starts getting more expensive. So effortless cards are basically free in that regard. But it generates fatigue normally once your concentration drops below 0. So even then, it's not forever. So eventually you need to end your turn. Effortless cards skip the discard pile but remain in your deck. Now what this means is that these cards are not consumable. That's what it means, that it remains in your deck. But they skip the discard pile because there are cards that allow you to take back cards from the discard pile. And because these are effortless, in theory, if this rule wasn't in place, you could just play this card and play another that gets it back, and then you have an infinite loop. And this makes sure that doesn't happen. You get this card back when you shuffle your discard pile back in your draw pile. So you will always have this card. This does strain -2. Strain is basically a synergy that makes the next card that you play cost 2 less. However, because it also counts as a synergy, the scroll blocks them from being used up. So this 3 -2 would mean that the next card I play would cost, like Fey Reflexes, would cost 0. But I could use Fey Luck before that, and it would still cost 0, but not use up the strain. So as long as you have cards marked with this scroll, you could just chain all of them up into one big payload at the very end. Okay, now this icon right here, this marks a discard effect. It's going to appear in battle right here below the cost, and you can just click that or push it manually to the discard pile. It will do this effect as described. Alright, so next, here I have a bandage. It has 1 use, so it's a consumable item, and it has Echo 1. See, Echo means at the end of the turn, it loses an Echo counter and is played again on the same target. So if I use this on my turn, I'm going to heal 5 health and lose bleeding, and at the end of my turn, I heal another 5 and lose bleeding. There are a few cards that I found that have infinite Echo. So you just play it once on an enemy, and at the end of every turn, it's going to happen. It's pretty busted, actually. Okay. See, with Patch Wounds, it's a pretty basic heal card. Loses bleeding. It is literally just an infinite bandage. But here it has a little lock icon. And what the lock means is that it has a conditional effect. You see, once you have Herbalism 1, this action gains heal 2 permanently. So you see, this is what it looks like at max level. If you don't have Herbalism, this is what it looks like when you have it upgraded and have Herbalism. I do have Herbalism right now, but it's at level 0. So if I put 1 level up point into that, then it's going to look like this. It's a pretty reliable healing card. Okay. Next, here's Mischief. This also has a conditional effect. If I have Conjuration at level 1 or above these 2, Earth damage, you see, because I have such low strength, negative affinity for bludgeoning, this card deals basically no damage. 0 to 1 bludgeoning, 0 to 1 chaotic. Now, chaotic damage is essentially the same as normal damage, but it hits randomly, and regular damage ups don't affect this. So the damage synergy from hardened stuff, this +2, it only applies to this bludgeoning. Not this one, because it's not the main effect of the card. This is just a conditional. This is the main effect of the card. So the extra damage gets into here, and then you are going to get chaotic. If you want to increase this, then you need to get a chaotic damage synergy. That's what would be added to this. Okay, next, rock shards. Deals earth damage. Deals earth damage to random enemies. This dice means it picks 2 targets at random, and it can be the same target each time. So if there's only one enemy, then everything is going to hit that same one. Okay, next, here's Sprout Vines. This card has to target an enemy, or it doesn't work. It deals damage, and gives you a Entangle synergy. So the next card is going to do Entangle. Entangle is a debuff that works almost like a stun, but only 50% of the time. So it has a chance of essentially stunning the enemy and making it lose a turn. Now this red skull icon means that if this card kills an enemy, it's going to do the effect. In this case, it's going to play itself again. And as you can see again, it's a tier 1 card. If you level it up to level 2, it's going to add +2 damage. And the way damage works is every damage calculation is always the maximum damage. And the minimum damage is always half of the maximum, rounded down. Okay? Okay. Okay, next is Phalak. It's an effortless card. It has a play. So when you play this, you have to choose one of these effects to happen. You can't do all of them. You have to choose. Okay. Next is Wand of Woodland Ally. So it has 10 uses, and it summons this wild boar. And it has a passive effect. Whenever a boar ally comes into play this turn, all boar allies get +1 lifetime. It is an infused card, so I can recharge it once I used it. And it's a trinket which has its own effect. I need to be in combat to show you. It's happening soon now. Okay, here, Wild Boar. This is an ally card. So you cast it and it's going to go to its place. It's going to stay there for 6 turns or until it dies. It has 17 health and does 8 damage. Again, this is the maximum damage. So once it's out, it's going to do 4 to 8 damage. And this is how much concentration it's going to drain every turn while it's active. And on the turn that you use this, so when you summon, it gives a damage synergy. And this scroll icon is for allies, and it means that you can right click it, the ally itself, while it's out, and instead of attacking, it has a special ability. This scroll icon means the special ability. So the boar's ability is to create this gore card and put it in your hand. So this gore card is a reaction which is effortless. It does these things. Now, Weave is an interesting effect. See, it's purple, and all of these purple lines are going to happen one after the other, nothing in between. So if you were to say, use this damage, synergy, then that damage doesn't go into either this or this. It's going to go down here. And if the card itself doesn't deal damage when you have a damage synergy, then it's going to give it basic damage, amplified by card level and your own affinities, like with normal cards. So putting damage synergy on non-damaging cards will always do less than if you amplify a card that already does damage, but in some cases it's the element that's going to matter, because you want to hit that enemy with that one specific element because it doesn't resist that one or something. And another thing about Weave is that it picks its targets. So let's say if it wasn't Weave, if it was just these two, then it would do this attack and this attack. And if the first killed the target, this would happen anyway. So it's essentially wasting these on one target. But with Weave, if this kills the first enemy, then this other one is going to go to the next one. So Weave cards are more efficient. Now this says Primal 3. Primal is a weird kind of damage because it's fixed. But how this works is that everything that is primal is going to increase its element by 1 and then deal damage. So Primal 3 means first it gives you a +1 in this element and adds that to this damage. So this deals 4 damage, but dealing damage of the element is using up the increase. So this primal is going to do the same again. So give you +1, then deal 7 damage. And this is important when you get elemental increases from other sources. So that would keep it higher up. Don't know if I have a card like that so I can tell you what I mean. Here, Amplify. Amplify directly gives you affinity, meaning damage, but every time you use an attack that has this element, you're going to lose amplify stacks until you're down to 0. Again, it's easier if I show you in action. Okay, now here I have Encrust. It's a support kind of card. See, it has to target an ally and exhausts it. And the ally that you target is going to change its usual attack element into bludgeoning. And this crossed blade icon means that whenever you use that ally to attack, this effect happens after the attack. So this would give then their attack an extra 4 earth damage, and the Encrust card itself gives the ally max health and current health. Or if you don't use the card, you discard it, you get a little bit of defense. Okay, next is Forest Side. This gives you a draw and amplifies, and gives a damage synergy. So this is a really good card to have. Okay, next, here's a Stonefolk. It's like a golem. Yeah, lives for 6 turns, does 5 damage. And on the turn that you use the card, Stonefolk allies that are out are going to be healed a little. This one's special ability is Rock Formation. You can see it right here. The effortless card. You can target a Stonefolk ally. You have to target the Stonefolk ally. And it gives you defense and physical resist. This icon means physical, so slashing, piercing and bludgeoning all rolled together. And it takes away 4 health from the ally you cast it on and its maximum health. So basically this gives you defend at the expense of the ally that you have. And its attack has a ranged primal earth damage effect. Here is Might of the Stone. Amplifies bludgeoning and gives power to Stonefolks and elementals. I think I don't want this. Maybe just one. Okay, here's Illusory Web, which gives vulnerable and stun. Can't actually use that because I have Forsaken Illusion character generation, so I'm going to just take this away. You see, it's only the vulnerable that gets upgraded with level, not the stun. And this has a 2-step unlockable effect. So if you have 1 point of conjuration, this gets 1 point of entangle, and you can see entangle actually benefits from the card's level. And if you have conjuration 3, it gets multicast 2. Multicast is a kind of card modifier how it works is there are multiple kinds. So Fury is the kind where the same card gets used on the same target multiple times. A multicast works with the targets in the line. So let's say I have 3 enemies out on the field, like this. And then I do a card that has multicast 2. That means it will always target the first and the second one in the line. There are multicast 3s and 4s later on. So you can't tell who it's going to hit, because it always hits the first 2. And here again, rolling border. This also has multicast, but it also has gambit. Gambit is a lot like play, like this Phaelach here, where only one of these effects are going to happen, but with Gambit it's random, so you can't choose which one of these are going to happen. So it's not very reliable, but it has multicast, so it happens twice. And lastly, here's a Stonefolk warrior. Okay, this is a bit stronger version than the regular Stonefolk. Let's see. If you're a druid, using this card gives you extra defense, and we are a druid, so this is essentially a defense card in our hands. And its ability is Hurl Rock, so it's effortless, it's a ranged earth damage, because it also rocketed, and it deals chaotic damage. Now this card is fleeting, and what fleeting does is that you can't keep it in your hand. At the end of the turn, if you don't use it, it's going to be gone. And this chicken icon, at least I always see this as a chicken, means that every time this ally gets refreshed. Like, you use it on your turn to attack or use the special ability, and at the start of the next turn they get refreshed, so you can use them again. So this effect means that every time they get refreshed, they're going to lose health and gain damage. So if you never use them, they're just sitting there, this is not going to happen. So you have to actively use them, they will get stronger. You shouldn't be afraid to use them, because they don't live for too long anyway. Okay. I think I'm going to take away this mischief, because it's useless for me. And I have 25 cards in my deck, with a minimum of 24, so this is already pretty manageable. Alright. Now I'm going to show you how the combat works in this game. Here I have the Grisbog Marsh selected, and here are the ley line affinities. These are unique to each location, as you can see, and every damage type in the affinity category is going to be increased, and everything in the aversion is going to be decreased. And you cannot influence these, you just have to play around them. Like here with the Grisbog Lake. It has a earth aversion, and I am an earth mage, so I either find an alternative source of damage, or I just don't come here altogether. Okay, now, you can scout the area. It's going to increase the time by 2, so it's 7 in the morning. Click this, it's going to get to 9. This will show the list of all the possible enemies that you can get. If you have seen them already, you can click on them and you can see their stats, resistances, what they're weak against, all their tags. Known tactics is what they do. The deck is the kind of cards that they use, if they have any. Those are usually melodies, detrimental cards that get added to your deck and the like. I've never seen this scarecrow dummy. I don't even know if it's a real enemy. Let's see. Now it says area scouted. I can preview rewards. This is randomly generated and gets regenerated every time I reload the game. So if I didn't like any of these, I could just quit and start again. So 18 possible rewards, and at the end of the quest it gives me 4 randomly, and I get to pick 2 of those. So these are pretty basic stuff, but also not bad for level 1. Okay, let's go and explore. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Every mission has a number of nodes, it's called. You always start at the entrance, so you can see how the quest is going to be. And if you don't like it for any reason, click on this fireplace icon and just get out. And here I have the talisman because it's equipped. Here's my health and my AP. Let's be. I can access the character sheet at any time or watch the collection. Here's the deck switcher. Like I said, you can do this at any time. And here is the backpack. Now it says if you're out of combat, you can use your single-use consumables directly, as if they were in your hand. But when you are in combat, you can click this backpack once a turn, and it's going to show you a random selection of 6 from all your cards that are consumables or trinkets. And then you can just spend 1 AP to put it in your hand. So you don't even need to have those cards in your deck. Okay, here this is the draw pile. This is the discard pile. You can manually discard cards by holding Control and clicking the card, or just clicking it normally and dragging it here to the Reaper guy. And boom, it's discarded. And then it doesn't show up in the discard pile because it's an equipment card. But every other card is right there. And this here is how many cards you have in your hand. This is the shuffle button. You can click it once per turn. It will put all cards back into your draw pile. It's useful if you rely on certain cards that don't go to the discard, or you want the chance to use them multiple times in a row. Stuff like that. Okay, if I click this now, it's going to move us here to battle. It's going to take 1 or 2 hours, depending on the quest. Okay, so this took 1 hour right here at the battle. So, got 5 cards, and I have this talisman. Here I have 3 Godorak Hunters. These 2 deal piercing damage, this one deals bludgeoning damage. You can see all their resistances. Below that it says resistant, sneak attack, venom, freeze, kill. Now, the way debuff resistance works, that if this page doesn't say it, that the enemy is not resistant to anything normally. Now, everything that resists sneak attack, that just means it's completely immune to sneak attack, so it doesn't work at all. But every other kind of resistance means an 85% resist. And it's weak to silver, which means if I had a silver weapon, that would do double damage. Or triple, depending on the kind of silver you have. These are all the same. And one thing that the game doesn't really tell you is that even the non-resistant enemies have a 25% chance to resist stuns and a 35% chance to resist Bewitched. And those stack with the enemy's specific resistances. So if there's an enemy that resists stun, that's 85% resist, that gets added on top of the 25%. And so you have absolutely no chance of inflicting stun on it, unless you pile on the fracture. Okay, so in this case I can start with Ascetic Life, because it's going to go away anyway. And now I can choose between these two. I couldn't use this because I don't have a point in herbalism, but I could get a yellow rose. I don't have this card permanently, it's just now in my hand. If I discard it or use it, it's gone. Okay, I can use a stone fork here. Now, the way you use allies is either click on the field or just right click them. And now he's up here, and it shows that I have 1 summon out of 2. So I can use the roses on him. That's going to give the duration up from 6 to 8 and give him +5 damage. See? But I can either right click him, that would do the crafting the rock formation card, or I could left click him, click on any enemy, and as you hover them over, it shows the resistances and the game calculates the estimated damage to the enemy and to the ally, because when you use your ally to attack, the enemy is going to hit back. Now I'm going to hit you because you don't resist bludgeoning. You see, it got hit back for 12, but it did its damage, and then the primal earth damage. Here I have the amplify, because the primal gives +1 amplify before dealing the damage. So now, if I use Forest Side, I draw 1, amplify earth. This stacks. So as you can see, I have a +4 damage synergy. If I use a Wild Boar, that +4 damage is going to go here. And it's going to be piercing because that's the card's element. But if I use it on the talisman, its element is earth, and I have heavy earth amplify. Plus the synergies, plus my own affinity, that's going to do 6 to 10 damage. Or I go put the +4 in this, and then this becomes 5 to 10. Same with here. So this is why the element of the cards are almost as important as what they actually do. Okay, so I'm going to actually discard Fey Reflexes, because I don't have any defense at all, and they're going to attack. So I will discard this. It gives me 5 defense. So if I use the board now, it will also give a damage synergy. So the card after this is going to do damage, just like this. So I will attack you, just so I can deal some damage. Then if I right click you, it's going to craft the Gore card. And as you can see, the damage from the synergy is not on the weave, it's right at the end. So it's not always self-evident just where in the text of the cards these synergies are going to go. It takes a little experimentation. Sometimes you need to know, just experience enough to know that maybe putting a damage synergy on a stun card is not very good, because damage breaks the stun, so it's like you do nothing. I just drew one card. Now you see I'm almost out of AP here. But I could use Forest Sight for a damage, then use Patch Wounds to attack this guy, just to kill it. And as you can see, he wanted to attack first, but now because I hit him a bunch, he switched tactics. This will happen a lot. Sometimes killing one enemy can make the others change their intent too. Okay, so I'm gonna use Forest Sight. I drew a card. Oh, this is even better. See, I'm going to use Sprout Vines. That has a pretty high damage, and if it kills an enemy, it's going to play itself again, and I have a lot of amplify. So I'm going to hit him. I hit him. The card made the entangle synergy, and because of its effect, that after I kill an enemy with it, it's going to cast itself again, that already applied the entangle from the synergy. So now he's entangled. That's a 50% chance to lose the turn. Okay, no one's going to hit me, so I'm going to discard patch wounds, so I can get 5 fresh cards the next turn. Okay, now he's going to flank. It's going to lower my defense by 2 per flank. And he's going to duel. If you have allies out, that duel is going to hit one of them. If you don't, then it's going to hit you. And you're also going to flank me. Okay, as you saw, it said incapacitated, which means the entangle worked. Now he did the duel and killed my Stonefork, and he also did 5 flank. Flank removes 2. Defend per stack, so minus 10, but because I didn't have that much defense, the rest turned into vulnerable. And this vulnerable is going to stay until I give myself some defense again. So now all of these damage that they're going to do is going to be 5 more, which I really don't want. Okay, so look, I can do this now. Use Ascetic Life. I don't want either of these, since I can't use them. In which case I can just hit close and don't pick any of these. Now I have a -2 strain on the synergies. You see, all of these are going to not cost me. But if I use Phaelach, I'm going to use one of these, and then the strain is going to remain. So now I'm going to defend. Let's see, the vulnerable got removed, and now I'm back to positive defend again. And I still have the -2 strain, which means I can use this rolling boulder. Okay, so for him, he was hit with the stun, and he was hit with just the damage. And I still have the strain. Okay, and now I'm going to summon another boar. Let's see, even though I have the plus damage synergy, these rock shards are not increasing this damage, and not the random damage, but instead it puts it right here at the end. So you can't always tell the effect that the synergy is going to have on the card. But I do like that you can just play like this. Now if I use rock shards, it's going to do random damage. So there's a chance that he is going to break out of stun if I hit him. So I'm not going to use this. Instead I'm going to use the talisman to deal some damage anyway. Now I got Fey reflexes. I'm going to use it. So this draws and inflicts mark. Mark is exactly like vulnerable, so it increases the damage that the target takes by 2 for each stack. So it's not going to resist the mark, because this goes in order. So this 4 damage becomes 6, this 3 to 6 becomes 5 to 8. Minus their resistance, if they have any, of course. Okay, so look. It did 12 damage, which is really good. Now I can use the boar to finish him off. And then discard this, because I'm not going to need it. And he was incapacitated, didn't do anything. And as long as you have an enemy stunned, you can use an ally to hit it, and the ally is not going to get hit back. Because essentially that enemy doesn't have a turn. Okay, now what I'm going to do is use Fey Luck, give myself double critical, it's 50%, and then I'm going to use Rock Shards. See all these damages. It's really nice. If I click this little scroll up at the top, this is the log. If you like math enough, you can just keep this open. This will detail every single thing that happens in this game. I sometimes keep it here, just to make sure I know what's going on. So, you see, I had the synergy, I cast Rock Shards, deals 2 to 5 damage to 2 randoms, drawed 2 damage twice. I mean, rolls damage once, which gets used for each target. And it's chaotic damage. So it hit, suffered, hit, it had resistance, and you see this one hit actually got the double critical. And now all I need to do is finish him off, which is just barely short. Let's get one boar out. Finish off the talisman. Okay, discard this. Now the next node is going to be Grimoire. Now this is a kind of event that happens quite often during quests. I can click on this spoiler button. It's gonna tell me what could happen. So the majority of the time you get a random card from one of your skills that you have. So it's basically a free card. Or you get a spell book that needs some specific thing. If you have that, you can get stuff from it. Or there's a low chance to get perk points and XP. or a low chance to lose health and action points. Gotta say, I never had this one happen to me. This one, work points much more than 5%. But okay, let's study. Okay, and now here I have 4 cards. I can pick one of them. So, rock shards, I already have them. This right here shows how many of these cards I already have in the collection. I could ready your bow or courtesy. This is for buffing allies or spirit animal rabbit. This gives multicast synergy. Multicast synergies and fury synergies are some of the most valuable cards in this game, in my opinion. Anything that lets you deal more damage or distribute more debuffs among enemies is always better. But I think I'm picking courtesy up. Okay. I clicked stash, which put that in my collection. I could have clicked deck, which would immediately put it in my deck, or I could have clicked hand, which gives a temporary copy of that card in my hand. That one isn't really useful unless the card in question is some kind of consumable or something. Okay, now Might of the Stone buffs Stonefolk. I don't have any of those, so I'm going to discard this. But Encrust, target an ally and exhaust it, turn its element into bludgeoning. So you see the boar normally has a piercing element. If I use Encrust on it, it got exhausted and got its health up, and its element is now bludgeoning, and it gained an attack effect of dealing damage. Now each of your allies can only have one of these special skills. If you use another, it gets overwritten. Okay, let's move on. Here we have some goblins. Okay. These single combats don't really concern me, but this attack mildly does. Now you can see these circles under each enemy. What you can do is click on it, and then you set this enemy as a specified target. That means you don't have to click on the card and hover over them for targeting. You can just right click and it will always choose this one if it can. Like, I'm going to use Forest Sight. Then I'm just going to right click Fey Reflexes and it's going to hit him. You see? Now I'm going to hit him. And the way mark and vulnerable works is that every instance of damage that you deal to the enemy is going to take advantage of these. So if he was the only one left, then these rock shards would all hit him, and every part of the damage would be amplified by the mark. Okay? Okay, so I could sprout vines. Damage over 6 would kill, and then it would cast again on this. And now you're entangled. Now I'm going to right click you to get a gore card. See, I still have the entangle from the sprout vines, so I'm going to hit you. You see, the enemy has 0% chance to resist bleed or entangle. But as you keep applying the same debuffs, the enemy will slowly gain resistance based on the amount of stacks that you have. So if I were to stack bleed on them, eventually their resist would go high enough that I would need to wait until the bleed goes down. Okay, and now I don't want to use this, so I'm just going to discard it for some extra defense. I'm going to use rock shards here. So you see, hit this one once and this one twice. Now, because I have my summoned like my maximum, if I were to use this Stonefolk Warrior, it would unsummon this one, which is at the leftmost side. This would get pushed here, and this one would get right here. And you can use these arrows to move your allies around, and you can also lock them, so they would get excluded from being unsummoned. Some allies, mostly the unique and the permanent ones, are always protected, so they will never get unsummoned by accident. Okay, so now I'm going to do this. See, the left one got unsummoned, now this one is here. I'm going to right click you to summon a Whirl Rock. It says right here, if a fleeting card is in your hand before your draw step, remove it and all cards with the same name from your hand and draw pile. Fleeting cards, skip the discard pile. So if this was the kind of card that I would have in my deck, if I didn't use this, then this and all the other copies, of which there could be 2, so 3 altogether, would get tossed, and I could only get them back if I get my draw pile shuffled back again. I'm going to use this Whirl Rock. So I am at Amplify +2, and this deals Primal +8. So the Primal is going to give +1 Amplify, so this is +3. And then it's going to deal 8 + 3, which is 11 damage. And then it's going to deal chaotic damage, which is also boosted by the Amplify. But that chaotic damage part actually used up one of the amplifiers. And now, because I heard this one, it's going to use a shield. When you use defend, it only lasts for that turn. When an enemy uses shield, it's going to stay there until you beat it down. See, this is my discard pile. If I click shuffle, it's going to put all of them back to the draw pile. If I click the backpack here, these are the consumables and the trinkets I have. I could spend 1 AP to put it in my hand. And this one didn't get to shield because it was incapacitated. Now, the way the AI works in this game is if you incapacitate them, like stun or entangle, then they're going to keep trying to do the same stuff that you get interrupted them from. I'm going to use this boar to kill. Okay, now you can see this one has 2 bleed and 1 health left. So when its turn begins, it's going to die. So I don't have to worry about this one. Now, if I use Might of the Stone here, I'm going to lose 2 health. But this Stone Folk is going to gain plus 2 damage. See? Okay, now you have exactly 1 health. But because you do that extra damage, I'm not going to unsummon you just yet. So I'm going to discard these boars. Then use Fey Luck to get some defense and Fey Reflexes to attack. And then you have a good chance to finish him. There we go. And then you're going to die. Yes, so when you kill an enemy like this, with damage over time on their turn, you're going to get what I call an empty turn. So you have to hit space or the next turn button to keep going. I usually use this empty turn to discard a couple of my cards. Okay, and now here's a grimoire again. So if I study, see, I got the 10% chance outcome. It doesn't do anything, so I can just grab this, and it's valuable stuff that I can sell. Okay, let's get rid of this border, this forest site. Next turn this boar is going to disappear. We got some Unseelie and Unseelie elves. Now you're doing single combat, and you're both doing a flank. Now I want to forest side for damage. Then I just discard you to heal up. Now I'm going to do rock shards on you. Okay, so these two got hit. So I'm going to summon this Stonefolk. That's going to heal all Stonefolk allies. So he is going to get 12 health. Boom. I'm going to use you for some rock hurl. Nice. Chaotic damage also hit you. Let's draw a card. Okay. Don't have the damage with cards to finish him. But I do have this Stonefolk. Alright. You see, because this one has the attack ability of dealing earth damage, these ones also get resolved in sequence. So because the original attack killed the guy I was targeting, this earth damage hit the next one in line. But this automatic targeting is also affected by the preferred target. So if I had him selected, then this primal damage would not go to him, but to him. Okay. Okay, so now he's almost dead. So I'm going to move him back here and summon another warrior. And I think I'm going to actually hit him. Okay. Don't need to heal, so that can go. Okay, so you're going to attack, and you're going to poison, then attack. It's a little misleading if you just see it like that, because poison in this game is actually called envenom. So what he's going to do is give himself a buff that's going to make him hurt me a little bit more. Okay, let's see. Okay, got some roses. Okay, so you are the more dangerous one. Because I really don't like the flank. Okay, let's hit you. You get marked. So now if I use the wild boar, get the damage synergy, then use sprout vines, going to hit him, kill him, and then hit this one. Here we go. And now because I have the entangle synergy, it's going to apply to everything. And because this would be used on an ally, you can't debuff your own ally cards. That's not how this works. So I'm just going to use this zero cost talisman to get rid of the synergy. And now he has 2 turns of entangled. These stacks go down by 1. I'm going to increase your damage and lifespan. Going to move you back a little bit. Actually, gets gore in. And he's almost dead. And now he's fully dead. And I still don't need healing. Okay, now we hit a question mark node. That could be anything, from fights to events. Let's see. Node rusted wagon stands as a relic of a bygone era. As you curiously inspect it, a loose floorboard seems out of place. Let's investigate. Prying it open, you discover a book stashed underneath. Curious, you approach and see the title, The Ballad of the Dreaded Seas. So now I can read this book. All these books you can find in this game are lore. So reading them is completely optional, but fun. Finding the book gives you plus XP, and you can read every book you find later in the game. So that was just what was in that node. Let's move on. Okay, we got a frog and 2 shroom monsters. Now I don't like this frog because it does this playful leap. It's an ability that puts a card in your hand that you can only get rid of if you use the card on a frog. And if you don't use the card and it stays in your hand, you can see that blue stopwatch icon. That means that if it stays in your hand, it's going to get discarded. But when it's discarded, it's going to give you envenomed, then just make another one of itself. So if I don't kill this frog, it's going to give me a card that will keep poisoning myself forever until I find the frog to use it on. So I really, really hate this frog. I don't need this. I'm going to gore this one. Let's draw a card. Okay, have a rose. Let's hit you. Okay, now because I hit him so much, it's going to enrage, then attack. Enrage is the opposite of weaken. So it's a persistent buff for the enemy that's going to increase its damage. At higher levels, it becomes extremely dangerous to keep enemies alive that can give themselves or every other enemy enrage. It's a really, really powerful buff for the enemy. Okay, let's try my luck. And it killed. Okay, you see, these ones resist entangle. If I look at it here, it says resists the entangled. Actually, let's keep you here. The way the battlefield is structured, keeping the lockdown if there's more than 3 enemies just covers the playing area, so it's not very good. But like this, it works. Okay, see, it has 85% chance to resist the entangle. That's the basic of what resist means. Let's get you, just for the healing. I can use a rose on you. You're going to stay for 11 turns. That's quite a lot. Now I'm going to start tossing rocks. That was an accident, but let's do this anyway. Okay. Okay, so because Rolling Border has multicast too, if I could put synergy on this, it would be extremely powerful, but I can't put synergy on this. This is important to keep track of. And as you can see, here. So this Rolling Border was cast on both of these. For the first time, it hit this guy and did a stun. And for the next instance of Rolling Border, it chose to deal random damage and hit him and immediately removed the stun. So this is the danger of combining stuns with damage. So you got marked. One defense wouldn't hurt since you're attacking, and he wants to heal and remove damage over time. Stacks. But I don't really feel like doing that. Like this. Right. One thing I forgot to say, that healing cards also work on your allies. But if you smart cast them, so just right click, and it's going to be you. Let's go for a critical. Sneak attack is an interesting mechanic of this game. It is basically a damage multiplier, but to use it, you need to be in concealment. Oh wait, I actually am in concealment. So I can just show you. So see, I have now +3 sneak attack. If I use it on Fey Reflexes, it's going to sneak attack ×3, but this only applies to the first damage that the card deals. So this 4 damage is going to be tripled, so this deals 12. And then it's going to deal this damage. Or it would if he wasn't resistant to sneak attack. So sneak attack didn't work on this guy, it was just the regular. Okay, and now I'm completely out of AP, and because I overused my cards, my concentration went down to the negative. See, now I have fatigue, and everything costs more. And you're gone. Don't need this. Okay, you're both single combating. So let's see. So each of these is going to kill one of these. So I have no use for this. Or I could just summon a use you first. Because if he's going to get unsummoned anyway, then you might as well just use it for an ability or an attack. Now summoning the boar. And we can use gore. Now I have +2 amplify piercing, which affects Fey reflexes. So this was a lot of damage for one turn. Okay, and now I want to start conserving my AP a little bit, so just going to end the turn. Okay, and now I'm in a bit of a pickle here. Because 17 vulnerable with 14 attack is almost half my health. And I do not welcome that prospect. So I think I'm doing this. Wow, and all the random damage hit the same guy when it didn't really need to. Okay, one more forest site. And then a talisman. Now, Stonefolk Warrior, just to chip away at the vulnerable a little bit. I have exactly 3% chance of avoiding damage. It's not much, but at least it's not nothing. And now I have entirely too many guys in my hands. Here we go. Let's gore you a little bit. And now if I'm lucky, you're going to finish this.
Level up.
And I am lucky. Alright. And this was the end of the quest. So now I can choose from this up to 2 cards. Here we have a Goblin Warrior. It deals a little damage, but every time he gets refreshed, he gives you retribution. This is the pure damage that you're going to deal back when someone attacks you. It's a counter-attack type of buff, and for some classes you can actually build retribution. So you barely have any attacks, you just stack defend and retribution, and the first guy that hits you is going to kill himself. Okay, here's Revitalize. If I use it, I draw a card, and if I don't use it, it discards itself, restores AP. Here's HP. That sounds very enticing, actually. Going to take this to the stash. Now here's one padded armor. It's free. It's used automatically to give +1 defend every turn. I already have one courtesy, and here's one marsh snake. When it attacks, it does venom, and its ability is to directly inflict bleed and venom. I tried a build with these ones some time ago. It's pretty fun until you run into enemies that resist both of these. Okay, and Stone Claws. This draw effect means that when you draw this card, it's going to make a copy of itself. So you put one of these in your deck, and every time you throw it, you can use this twice. This does bleed and slashing damage. I think I'm going to try this one. Well, I currently have, what, -2 or -3 with slashing. You know what? No, I'm going to stay away from Stone Claws, but instead go with some padded armor. Okay, now you completed this area. And for completing it, you got XP, perk points, money, a little bit of influence, and you get some HP and AP back. Okay, now we can return to the world map. And so, nothing changed. Let's put the armor on. You see, if I had the subterfuge skill, then this armor would give me strain -1 automatically. So every turn, the first card I play would cost 1 less, which is pretty nice. But we're going to equip it. It goes to the armor slot. Then I'm going to press W again for the loadouts. I'm going to overwrite the preset, so it's going to add the padded armor right here. And I have 2 level up points. And if this was any other RPG, I would say you could go ahead and use them to increase your skills. However, in this game, there are NPCs that can teach you skills, so you can upgrade your skills with money. And there's not much you actually use money for in this game, so especially with skills that have low levels, I tend to not touch them and just look for an NPC that can teach me, because the higher the level, the more money it's going to cost to increase it, and you have a limited capacity for money. So especially in the early game, I really recommend just leaving these as you had in character creation. You're going to find the NPCs that will teach you anyway. Alright then. This has gone on for quite a long time, so I'm going to stop right here. I think next time I'm going to dive into the perks a little bit. Maybe look around the town for more skill cards. But anyway, if you have watched up until this point, thank you, and I'm sorry. And I'm going to be back some other time. I hope you enjoyed. Bye.